live from Lessons from the Front. We are live with Carry the Loads Lessons from the Front, and I have with me today a fantastic guest. My name is Todd Boeding, and I am excited to welcome my good friend, my fellow Marine, Jacob Shick, and that's all the intro I'm going to do because I'm ready to get talking with you, my friend. How are you?
I'm on the top side of the soil, brother. Can't complain.
And top side of the soil is a good place to be.
That's right. Indeed.
So, man, you know, I'm excited to talk to you, not just because of our history together, not just because of 22 Kill, but I'm just every time I talk to you, I feel like I walk away with a hell of a lot more information than when I walked into the conversation with. And that is no, I'm serious. I give you a lot of credit there because, you know, obviously based on some of the things you're probably going to talk about, you've had a lot of time in life to really reflect and be very introspective. And you've had time to figure out how to articulate that. And I just always walk away in a better position than when I got to see it. So all that being said, as I always do, I want to set it up for everybody and put context behind anything you tell us. Who was Jake Shick before you entered the Marine Corps?
Great question. I was a kid from Louisiana trying to find my way in the world, loved football from a very young age, loved team athletics, really, just the team aspect I always was very drawn to. Mainly trying to chase my older brother and his God-given natural ability on any field of play he walked on. So, you know, I'm not sure I ever caught him, but I gave it hell. Gave him a run for his money in our later years in sports, but moved to Texas at a young age. Parents divorced at a young age. You know, I just believe there's the depths of my soul, there's no such thing as a cookie cutter childhood. I think that we all experience some form of mental and emotional trauma as a child, regardless of socioeconomic background, religion, race, color, creed. I just believe is irrelevant. I think that we all experience some type of something in the form of trauma and tragedies, young people. And so that I definitely had that in my life at a young age, and then moved to Texas, to the great city of Coppell, when I was around 12 years old. And that's where I really started to develop athletically. I wouldn't really say educationally. I kind of was much more of a dedicated student early on, and then went through puberty, and it just changed. Education took a back seat. But sports was really always on the forefront, and wanting to be the United States Marine was on the forefront since about the age of 8 years old. So that was really the early on childhood, and the whole coming of the Marine Corps life started so young because of being so close to my grandmother growing up. And I'm a third generation Marine after my grandfather for World War II, fought in Iwo Jima, the Island Hopping Campaign, Korea, and my uncle Vietnam era. And so my grandmother would talk about my grandfather, who died a couple of years before I was born, and you know, her chest would swell with pride and her eyes would light up. And I just thought, man, okay, if she's going to talk about me that way, I've got to be a United States Marine. And so that's really where it all started for me, and from serving, wearing a uniform standpoint.
So you're a third generation Marine. You heard about it all the way growing up. So in your mind, it was a foregone conclusion. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there was probably a lot more there between playing ball and that camaraderie that led you into the Marine Corps. What were the comparisons that you found between, say, you know, playing football on that team versus the teams that you found in the Marine Corps?
You know, there's a lot of commonality to it, meaning like when I speak to professional football teams or baseball teams, or even the retired professional athletes, it is almost across the board them saying, it's not the field that I miss so much as it is the locker room or the clubhouse. And so I think that for me, Marines, A, because best of the best, B, because of the tradition. My family is a very traditional family.
Yep.
And the Marines goes without saying, and even our Navy SEAL friends and our Ranger friends, all the people that you and I both know will agree that as Marines, we adhere to tradition far more than any other branch. And it's just something
Right.
that's been instilled in us from a very early time. And so that's something that I was very drawn to. I wanted that solid foundation of tradition, because I feel like it gives you an advantage out of the gate. And so that's something that really drew me to the Marine Corps. And then, hearing about the Marine Corps and learning about the Marine Corps, I remember I was 5 years old, and I was in Louisiana, and I was visiting my grandmother, which was a very common thing. And she took me down the street to Red's house. And his name wasn't Red, his nickname was Red. And he was a combat photographer in World War II.
Ooh, interesting.
I remember sitting on Red's knee, and he was showing me pictures after we had liberated a concentration camp. And I remember seeing the piles of emaciated bodies from these concentration camps, and him explaining to me what happened and why that happened and what we as Americans did to help stop that evil from taking place. And I just remember thinking at 5 years old, like, man, I gotta do my part. I gotta do something to contribute to the greater good to make sure this doesn't happen again.
At 5 years old, you remember that? I mean, so that literally was one of your earliest memories then.
That is a very vivid memory that stands out, especially, as you know, because we're personal friends, but my path through sobriety, I'm starting to remember more and more things. That is one I never forgot. That was one that made a very, very drastic impact on me that has stuck with me. Just knowing that, we got to keep focused on right things, right reasons, and that, it's not always about us. And most oftentimes it has nothing to do with us. It's about what can we do for those around us. But we have to be in our best place mentally, emotionally, physically. We have to be centered and healthy in order to be able to help those live their best lives around us. And, that's why I'm a strong believer too in the saying that you are who you hang out with. I mean, that is, you are going to become the company you keep. All those things are not just sayings or, analogies to me. They all ring true. They're very, very true. And trust me, I've danced on both sides of the road with those groups, and it is very true. And so having that.
Yeah, hold on one second. I wanted to ask you about that a little bit. Did you find yourself growing up dancing do you remember dancing with one of those groups growing up? And that doesn't say that people are bad. It just means that they're not right for you.
No. Yes, I experienced all kinds, all walks. And I think that was a result of a lot of, having parent issues. I won't even say mommy or daddy. I'll say on both sides, just not being firm in where I stood in the family dynamic, and having older siblings, and having come from a very dysfunctional situation, that regardless of what parent did what, my father did the best he could with what he knew how to do. Of course, it was a very situation to him, but it's
there's no manual. There's no manual that comes with being a parent. There's no manual that comes with so many things we do in life.
Life is it's a constantly learning evolution. Day dies, the day suffering. That's the way you got to look at it. None of us are ever going to have it figured out. Anyone that comes to me and they're like, "Hey, Jake, I figured it out about whatever it may be, suicides, suicidal ideation, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." Anyone that comes to me like, "Hey, I got it, figured it out." I'm like, "Perfect. You and I never have to talk again. I have nothing to learn from you." Okay.
All right. So So you obviously, it was a foregone conclusion for you that you were going into the Marine Corps. My guess is that you didn't even, oblique right, left, or anything. You just went straight into the Marine Corps recruiting office. So we know how you ended up there. From your time in service, and you experienced some things, I'm going to let you take this wherever you want. But from your time in service, is there one memory, one episode, one impressionable moment that stands out and stays with you to this day in such a way that you use it as a way to teach other people about life?
Yeah, I just got freedom bumps. Most people call them chill bumps, but I call them freedom bumps.
I'm going with that next time it happens.
Man, there's so much more than one. There's so much more than one. After, just for those that don't know, I was severely wounded in Al-Assad, Iraq, aka the Sunni Triangle of Death Triangle, in 2004. And as a result of that gnarly day at the office, amputation of my right leg below the knee, multiple compound fractures in my left leg, left arm, broke all my ribs, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean,
yeah, you're just glossing over it like it was just a regular day at the office.
Jay, it was a bad day at work. It
was a bad day.
And it was a day I'll never forget because, I was blown through the top of a Humvee, landed on my head. And I like to say, because God's a comedian, I never lost consciousness, I never went into shock. And it took the Black Hawk 42 minutes to come and get me. And so I wasn't real happy about the whole situation in its entirety. But the first, I'd like to talk about three, if I may, obviously very abbreviated. But the first situation that I'm very, very grateful for, thankful for, that I'll never forget, is being in the back of the second Humvee that wasn't hit. And the guys got me back up to the command post, and Doc started working on me. And I was so pissed off because he would only hit me with 2 sticks of morphine, and I knew he had more. And
give it to me.
Yeah, and I didn't know that, clearly he was just trying not to kill me, but I wanted more drugs. But the only thing that wasn't crushed or destroyed in the explosion was my right arm. And I remember being in the back of the second Humvee up by the command post, and all the guys got in the driver's seat because all we had to operate in were 2-door soft top Humvees. And this is early on, 2004. And we didn't have the MRAPs and the giant vehicles that we see now.
Right.
We just didn't have them, especially in the Marine Corps. As you know, we're poor.
Sure.
We get it done. But they would get in the driver's seat, and I got to hold each one of their hands with my right arm. And I got to tell each one of them how much I loved them and how much they meant to me and how much I respected them, and that I'm the Marine that I am because of them, and that they have to go on and fight for me. Now, I can't fight. I'm done. I'm out of the fight, and that to take a good look at me, because this is what our enemy wants to do. And so they had to carry the flag. And just to let them know, we got to take down the wall of the bravado and that, I'm this big tough Marine. Like, we got to take that all went to the side, and it was very real, in-depth, soul-to-soul connection. It was human connection on a very authentic level. And that was one of the ones that it kind of teed me up for my journey after being severely wounded. It gave me a lot of motivation and a lot of internal fortitude to fight through the coming months that I was going to be basically having a thumb war with the Grim Reaper every single day for months on end. And that would be my first one. The second one would be, I remember when my dad told, I'm in the hospital. I did 18 months in the hospital. I had over 50 operations, over 20 blood transfusions. It was not, that was not a whole lot of fun about that whole situation. But I remember my dad coming to my room one day, and this was just a couple months after I got hit, and he said, "Hey, First Sergeant's going to come see you." And I was like, oh crap, man. First sergeant was the type of Marine that just fell off the poster. You know, he was the type of guy that be a drill master, did a ton of time on the drill field as a drill instructor. And so, you know, he was, everything was locked tight. I mean, step and pop. He was the guy that didn't miss a beat. And I just thought, oh crap, he's going to probably finish the job. You know, he's probably pissed I got. And so I just thought to myself, well, what I'll do is I'll just act like I'm asleep when he comes in the room, and, you know, then we're good. I'm on a lot of drugs. You know, they won't know any different. He won't know any different. And so that was my plan. Well, so my whole family's in my room, and first sergeant shows up, knocks on the door. My dad opens the door, and he has a very distinct voice. And so when he said, "Good evening, Mr. Shick," I knew that's first sergeant. And so I immediately was like, okay, I'm just gonna act like I'm asleep. Well, my heart monitor ended up diming me out because, you know, you have the steady. Well, so my heart started pumping, BP went up, adrenaline started, and then so it was just a quicker boo, 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 boo. So I was like, all right, well, damn, they know I'm not asleep. And so just kind of opened my eyes like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. And I will never forget first sergeant looking at my dad and saying, "Hey, Mr. Shick, you mind if I get a minute with my brother?" And remember, everybody, like, there's a ton of people in my room. And he said, "Yeah, of course, first sergeant, go ahead." He said, "Yeah, no, I'm going to need all of you to get the blank out." And I was like, and I'm like, "Don't get out of the room.
Don't leave.
We're losing all the witnesses." And so everybody got out. And I remember first sergeant came around to the right side of my bed after everybody was out. My dad closed the door on the way out. And he held his right arm out as if to pick me up off the ground, the way someone would pick you up off the ground. And he put the back of my hand on his heart and the back of his hand on my heart. And he leaned his forehead on my forehead. And he just sat there for about 3 minutes. Didn't say a word. And he stood up and he touched my face, kind of like patted my face, and he walked out. And it was the strongest conversation I've ever had, and not one word was spoken. It was probably the most impactful moment of knowing I was a part of a tribe that was second to none I had ever had up to that point in my life, to where the bond is so strong you don't even have to speak. And that is pure, unadulterated love. That's what love is. And
Yes.
I remember when he walked out of the room, he must have got emotional when he broke the hatch at the doorway. And my dad came in and he was like, "Hey, first sergeant." Well, of course, I'm emotional at this point. As soon as he's out of eyesight, I get emotional. My dad walks in, looks at me, and he goes, "Hey, first sergeant," and then stops. And he just shook his head and was like, he just said, "Man, you Marines are weird." Oh. But that was a moment where I felt, out of all my time in the Marine Corps, out of all the training, the pain, it's to experience that one moment as a United States Marine with a senior United States Marine who went on to become the Sergeant Major of the United States Marine Corps, makes it's all worth it just for that 1 3-minute period.
I mean, that's a strong story, Jake. And you know, you've told me that before. I have heard that one before, and it never ceases to grab me. And I think it's one of the, I mean, first of all, there's two things to that story that stand out to me. Number one is I have learned how in the face, you know, either in the face of a disaster like that, or with that in your rearview mirror, I've learned from you the importance of maintaining a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. Like you said, God has a sense of humor because you were awake and conscious during that whole thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I mean, I love that, the sense of humor that you have. But the other part about that story is the power of silence. You know, and I actually listened to a podcast from somebody the other day, and it was talking about the sound of silence. You know, it was about, you know, the old Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah.
And when you really stop and think about the words to that and the story you just said, that silence said more than any words he could have said. Powerful.
And it's proof positive that most oftentimes less is more.
Yes.
And it's just something that for me, I can't wait to tell my kids about it. And because the way that my family loved me and the way that he loved me, the way that my fellow Marines loved me, like they showed me, they didn't tell me, but they showed me what loving is. And I truly believe that from the time we're born to the time we die, we have two objectives, and only two, regardless of socioeconomic background, what corner of the world you're from, race, color, creed, religion. I believe that we have two objectives, and it's to love and be loved. That's it. Everything in between is filler. And those that's what I try and focus on. Now, look, I fall short often because I'm a fundamentally flawed human being, just like everybody else, and I'm very in tune with my flaws, and because I have exercised them greatly in my short time here on the spinning ball of chaos. But
you've pushed him to the brink, is what you're saying.
I very well could be known as Captain Envelope Pusher in all things, but it's it keeps it interesting. It keeps it interesting, but I'm just so grateful because it's, as a leader, being able to be led by people that are driven by love first.
Yes.
And I had that with my first sergeant, with my gunny, with my platoon sergeant, COXO. I was so fortunate to have the leadership that I had. I'm very fortunate because that was with my football coaches in high school, middle school. Like it just carried over, and I've been very, very blessed and abundantly blessed, just most oftentimes too ignorant to realize it. And I'm just so grateful because of the impact that so many people, principals, assistant principals, school counselors, teachers have had on my life, that they've each made a special impression on my soul that I get to carry with me, as long as God needs me. And I'm just grateful for that. I've just been very blessed. I'm very grateful to have come through a lot of the darkness that I've come through.
Well, and I'm here to tell you that you have blessed a lot of people the way that you have touched a lot of people. And I really, that's a good segue. I know you said you had 3 stories, but I'm going to jump in here and give one myself because for anyone who is unfamiliar with this, Jacob Shick is actually the guy who first set us in motion for lessons from the front. He did it unknowingly, he did it unwittingly, but he did it because of a story that he was telling. And so, Jake, the story you may or may not recall was of the day that
developed.
What's that?
It's developed 360.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely. And so when I first met Jacob, I was introduced to him as, hey, I want you to meet another Marine. This is Jake Shick. He's a little different because he got into a fight with an IED, but he actually won. And so I thought, okay, right out of the gate, I'm thinking, all right, this is Clint Bruce that introduced us. And I thought, wow, that's cool. I like to hear that story. Well, then I hear you telling your story, and I'd actually heard this more than once about the day that you met that IED and battled and won. But it was the third time I heard the story, and I was a complete bystander. And of course, I got the better late than never award in high school, and there's a reason for that because it took me 3 times for this to actually hit me. But what happened to Jake was, like he said, he was thrown 30 feet through the roof of the Humvee, comes down, basically, like he said, very conscious. And if I remember correctly, you wake up or you open your eyes, and your entire squad is around you. And Jacob was the squad leader. The entire squad is around you, looking down on you. Man, are you okay? Are you okay? Oh my God, look at him. And the first words out of Jake's mouth were, who's got the perimeter?
That developed security.
Yeah, develop your 360. Who's got the perimeter? In other words, and when you said that, the interpretation from, that I heard was, hey, jackwagons, the bad guys are still out there and they're trying to do this to you. So develop a 360 and don't let them in. Yeah. And all of a sudden I went, oh my God, what a great lesson. because the lesson was, in the midst of chaos, when bad things happen, you cannot curl up into a ball because the bad guys are still coming.
Yeah, evil's
And
out.
so,
Yeah,
yeah,
I really said it because I really didn't feel like getting shot at that moment, and I was like, I just really don't want to get shot right now, like it. But yeah, I remember that, and I figured you would bring it up, but it was, man, I think that's a lot of people say, Jake, I can't imagine what you've been through, all the operations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I could sit here and tell you that, man, it's because I'm tough and I'm this or I'm that. Look, we're all humans, and I attribute that to my training and the Marine Corps getting me where they needed me and being surrounded by Marines that are better than me. And by default, I was better. I attribute that to just doing the same thing 1,000 times over and over and over and over, to the point of getting so sick of it and realizing that it was muscle memory, because we were going to be in an
yeah,
environment where hopefully you react without thinking because you've done it so many times. And but that was one of those things where, look, bad things are going to happen. Evil is out
yes,
there. You have to drive forward. You have to grind forward. And people ask me, "Hey, Jake, how you doing?" I like to say I'm just grinding with grace. Just grinding with grace, because I'm just trying to remember I'm a fundamentally flawed human. Sometimes I fall short as a leader, and or as a father, as a friend, as a brother, as a son, and that's okay. It's okay, because we are all fundamentally flawed, and it's okay to not be
yes.
okay. And I think that that's very important for people to remember, is that we all struggle with the fact that we all suffer from the human element and the human condition. That's what.
Okay, so I'm glad you went there, because that allows us to kind of segue into the tribe that is known as 22 Kill. And you're right, we're all fundamentally flawed. Could not agree with you more. But there are a lot of our brothers and sisters out there that don't understand that, and well, they may understand it, but they can't accept it. And I know right now, more than any other time, with all of this, sequestering and whatever in place, it's given people a lot of time to think about things that are not healthy.
Right.
So are you guys seeing I mean, first of all, tell everybody what is the mission of 22 Kill? I should probably start.
No worries. 22 Kill is a nonprofit organization whose sole focus is mental wellness. That we are completely centered around mental wellness for veterans, military, first responders, law enforcement officers, now frontline healthcare workers, and all of their respective family members. That's who we serve on a daily basis. And yes, we have seen an uptick for sure since the pandemic and the isolation, isolating in place and shelter in place, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen an uptick. And I have a very, I know because I've lived it. Uh, People have is busy. We all get really busy, have busy lifestyles, and we're going to this place, we're doing this, we're going here and doing that. And the pause, God just hit the pause buttons. Everybody stop. And I think a lot of people are really learning that there's a significant difference from being alone and being lonely. And what the difference is that when you can be alone, you can be alone because you're at peace with where you are in your life journey. You're at peace with yourself. You're practicing health and wellness when it comes to meditation or therapy or any gamut of healthy things to help you maintain a centered emotional and mental state. Being lonely is much different. That's when the pause button got hit, and you got that gerbil running on the wheel, and then that starts stirring up some stuff in your soul that you thought was gone. And then next thing you know, you don't really have any healthy habits to fall on. And I hadn't always been that way. I mean, trust me, mine used to be drugs and alcohol and sex and anything else you could think of that was not healthy. It was a not healthy way to deal with trauma and tragedy. Because there's a million ways to do it in an unhealthy manner. It doesn't have to be those things. It can be tons of other things. It can be religion or the gym or your job. And so I think people are starting to see that, okay, I need to get to the bottom of what I thought was lying dormant down there in my soul, because it's not. I can sit here and tell you from my own personal life experience and from being in this battle for over a decade that, look, trauma didn't go away. Tragedy doesn't go away. And people say, well, you'll get over it in time. Time's going to help you. You're not going to get over it. You're going to learn to deal with it in a healthy manner, or you're not.
Yes.
And that's what we need to focus on. We need to focus on, and that's why we say at 22 Kill, our tagline, as you well know, one tribe, one fight. We're all in this life thing together. All
You
of
see,
us.
I got my shirt on, right?
Hey, I noticed that. That's pretty sweet.
Okay.
Don did a great job designing that. That's my favorite Carry the Load shirt.
It is absolutely an awesome shirt. I love it. So, okay, so you've seen an uptick, which is unfortunate, but it's also, like you said, tragedy continues, trauma continues.
Yeah.
It's hard to avoid it, but we got to keep it in check. And and I'm going to mention later on and towards the end who I'm carrying this year, and it is someone who who took his own life after battle. He was actually my mother-in-law's father after World War II. And I got to tell you, this is me sharing my scars here. I did not used to understand suicide. I just didn't. I am embarrassed about the way I used to view it. I was very immature about how I viewed it because I'm not wired that way. And I have finally come to the realization through organizations like yours and through reading books from folks who have recommended that to me from organizations like yours. It is a real sickness and we cannot ignore it. And you started something called, we've got Gold Star, we've got Blue Star. Talk about the one that you guys, I think, coined.
Yeah, it's White Star families. And what that is family members who've been affected by the act of suicide. So they've lost a loved one who wore the uniform or is wearing the uniform to their own hand. And the reason we did that is because, traditionally Gold Star basically says that that's law. You're losing a family member in combat or a training incident is a Gold Star family. And essentially what happened is the Gold Star didn't want people or family members who lost a warrior to suicide at their table. Was essentially how it started. And it was like, well, you know what? Screw it. We'll build our own table. And that's how we coined White Star. Because to me and to the tribe, and all of them will speak to you on this because we've met so many families now at this point.
Yes.
That have lost someone. And they deserve to be honored just as much as anybody else. Just as much as anybody else, especially if you're a believer, if you believe in a higher power and you say, well, it's a coward's way out. Because you and I talked about this on the phone.
Yes.
Years ago, I used to be the same way. And then I found myself battling my own demons, struggling with suicidal ideation. And it's amazing how much I've evolved in my viewpoint on it. Because look, to me, it's between them and God. And it's just like I tell the tribe, like, look, it's not our job to figure out the why. It's our job to figure out what's next. What can we do better that we're not already doing? How do we adjust our left and right lateral limits? How can we be better? How can we be bigger, stronger, faster to be able to help more effectively? And it's not our job to figure out the why. No point going into the weeds. There's no point. It's not our job to save lives. And I always say 2 reasons. There's a God, we're not him. Not our job. Our job is to give these people from all walks of life the tools to help them help themselves and to truly believe they're worth living well. Because that's the only way we can honor those that came before us and those that are going to come after us, is by living well. There is no other way.
Well, I want to personally thank you in that regard, and the entire team at 22 Kill. Y'all are a fantastic partner to us, and y'all are making a difference. And I know that you probably are aware of that, but y'all need to hear it more. Y'all are making a difference.
I appreciate you, brother. I mean, look, as you know, we carry the load, something so close to us, especially me personally, knowing Steven and Clint as well as I do, you, Debbie. It is infectious what carry the load does. It's something that it's unavoidable. And look, the tribe at 22 Kills just believes in it, and their hearts and soul are in it. And because the same way they're in our day-to-day mission, one tribe, one fight is all of us.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes.
That's humankind leaning in, loving hard, and finding victory in our vulnerability and refusing to be hostages to our pride so we can live well. That's what it is. And Carry the Load is an unbelievable, shining example of what can happen when people come together and refuse to put self first.
Well, I appreciate all those kind words, and I completely agree. And I want to shift back to Jacob Shick for to kind of wrap this thing up and close it out. So, it's funny. I think quite a few people expected me to talk about a certain side of Jake Shick, and it would actually be really easy to go in here and ask you all kinds of questions about Hollywood and your relationship with Bradley Cooper and all of that. It'd be easy.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna bring it up only to that point.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give you a little credit, and then I want to ask you a question about your experience there. One of the things that I remember you telling me when we went, I think we went to Blue Goose at one point for lunch, and you were telling me that Bradley Cooper called you one day after you guys had become friends through American Sniper.
Mm-hmm.
And he asked you to be, he said, "Hey, man, I need you to come out to Hollywood. I need you to show up at and I need you to play a part in a movie." And I remember the question that you asked him as you were recounting that. You want to tell us about that? The terms under which you were willing to be in the movie.
Yeah. So, he'd said, "Hey, bro, I need a favor. I'm I'm neck deep in filming Stars Born, and I don't have time to cast this role. You'd be perfect for the role. I just need you to basically just do the yelling Marine thing," and which he's heard me do from our time hanging out and getting to know one another. And he said, "I just need you to play this role. It's easy. You're gonna play Lady Gaga's boss. All you gotta do is yell at her and call it a day." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Cool, man. But tell me this," because I was very familiar with Stars Born and the storyline from growing up. And I said, "Well, does the lead role die traditionally like in the other remakes of Stars Born?" And he said, "Well, I'm not going to tell you that." I said, "All right, well, cool, then I'm not doing it." And he's like, "What?" He said, "Really, bro?" And I was like, "Yeah, really, bro. I'm not doing it. I need to do things that matter. I'm trying to do things that matter and that I can relate to, and I'm trying to leave this spinning ball of chaos better than I found it. It needs to matter." And he said, "All right, yeah, bro." I mean, because Bradley's a very, he's been clean and sober for a long time, and he's very well centered, and just I've learned so much from him. A lot of ways. He's a mentor to me in so many different ways. And he said, "Yeah, okay, yeah, bro." Then he does. I was like, "Good to go. All right, well, send me the flight info. I'll see you Monday." And that was really that's how it happened. He was like, "That's all it is." Like, that's all.
But see, I mean, to me, that is the perfect example of how Jacob Shick has remained grounded. And I give you a lot of credit there. I mean, I've never, I knew you before this, I knew you after it. It never went to your head. It's just who you are. And so I appreciate you being like that.
Thank you, brother.
Right.
Yeah, listen.
Right, so
I'll leave. I'll say this, and this is
no. This is my show. You're not going to close us out because I got two more questions for you.
Okay, go ahead. You go.
All right. So I always like to ask everybody, one question totally out of the blue. You never would have thought about it.
Okay.
But I'm gonna cheat a little bit. You have thought about this before. In
Okay.
the Marine Corps, we talk about prioritization of missions. And is it mission focused or is it troop focused? Meaning the main mission is to accomplish the mission, or is the main mission to take care of the troops? What say you, Mr. Shick? I hope you're not drinking out of the wrong bottle too, by the way.
I'm not used to, but this is just, it's different. I'm much more used to now.
So what comes first, mission accomplishment or troop welfare?
Troop welfare, hands down.
Why?
10 times out of 10, because you're only as good as the people around you. You're only as good in totality as the people around you. Doesn't matter. I mean, look, not every mission is going to succeed. You are going to fail in life. The group of people you're with are going to fail in life. Failure is inevitable. It is going to happen. Never, ever, ever allow the people that you love or the people that you're leading or the people that you're a part of take a back seat. Not worth it. It's not worth it. I don't give a crap what the Marine Corps saying is, the Army saying, the firefighter, police. I don't care. People first. Put your people first. 22 Kill is where it is because of the people we have involved that work there, that volunteer, that have experienced the unfortunate act of suicide, that have those that relate to it. That is why we are where we are. That is 100% why Carry the Load is where Carry the Load is. It's because of the people, not the mission. Don't get them confused. I'm telling you, 100% of the time, troop welfare, hands down.
Love it. I love it. Well, I'm going to have one final question for you, but you wanted to throw something else out.
Yeah.
So,
I was just going to say, I attribute this largely to my dad, who's a hero to me through and through, who's an executive banker. And, but man, he's just, the older you get, the more you realize how wise some of the people that raised you are. And my dad always told me this will basically sum up what my dad very simply always told me. So I have this sign above my boys' bathroom, and every time they go in to use the bathroom or leave the bathroom, I make them read it, going in and going out. And I'm like, I don't care if you can't see me in the house, I want to hear it. If you can't see me, yell it. Okay, Dad, I got it. And all it says, it's right above the toilet, and all it says is stay humble, be kind, work hard. That's it.
Oh, I love that. Stay humble, be kind, work hard.
That's it. And so that's kind of what I stay, I try anyway, I stay focused on, because, it's just, we're all just people. That's it.
That's it. Well, my friend, as always, it has been my pleasure, I can assure you. And we're at that point where we're back to Carry the Load, and we're talking about who we're carrying this year. So do you have anybody in particular you're carrying this year that you want to share with us?
The first year I did Carry the Load, I did. A very, very, very close friend of mine, fellow Marine, Ty. He and I were in the hospital together in San Antonio. And we were the only two Marines for a little bit of time, and man, we rose hell. But Ty was the first year I did Carry the Load. It was the only one I carried, and so much happened so quickly that I will never again say just one name that I'm carrying. Because at this point, it's a mental Rolodex, and I've been so fortunate to come to truly love so many people,
Yes.
And then unfortunately, we've lost so many. I will never ever again name just one name. That's just personally for me. I'll just never do it. I'm carrying a lot, and I think not just for carrying the load. I think them and their families help push me daily. And when I get tired and I get down or beaten down or sad or depressed, and I start thinking about them and their legacies, because we are the gatekeepers of their legacy. And that's all the push I usually need to get me out of the rabbit hole to keep grinding with grace. So I
I love that.
won't name
We
one
are
name.
we are the gatekeepers of their legacy. I think I'm going to use that as a quote at some point, because that was pretty good.
Cool. All right, no worries.
Hey, you know what? If you're like me, if you steal it from me, you probably stole it twice anyway. So you know. Hey, Jacob Shick, Marine, man, I can't tell you how much it is, how much of a pleasure it is to see you. You know, like I said, every time I get together with you, I feel invigorated, I feel alive, and you have that kind of impact on people. And I want you to know that, in case you hadn't heard that enough, because you, sir, are making a difference in this world, and I truly appreciate that. So
Well,
thanks for being here.
Thank you, brother. I love you, man, and
love you too.
Love the mission, love the people, and man, we're gonna come through this whole pandemic thing on the top side. It's just got to grind.
That's what we do.
That's it.
It's what we do.
We'll get through it. So thank you, brother. I appreciate you guys and love you.
For all of you out there watching, thank you very much for being here with us tonight. You know, again, it was a pleasure for me to talk to my friend Jake Shick. And I want you to remember just this one thing. My name is Todd Boeding, and I am carrying Sergeant R.E. Worley of Shippensburg, Pennsylvania. Who are you carrying?